Thank you, Christina. So we pick up the sparkle from Anne yesterday, where we left, and we have an exciting day today in terms of the input and what the interactive sessions will bring us. The first part of the day is more of the listening and commenting and talking. The second one is more about interacting, as you heard from Christina. So I'm super happy to introduce our first speaker for today, our advisory board member, Merete. You've heard already, so she's the curator and the senior advisor of digital museum practice at the Statens Museum for Kunst in Denmark. So Merete is responsible for the museum's open access policy and is working to foster active reuse of the museum's digitized collections for research, learning, knowledge sharing, and creativity. So a lot of things that cropped up in our conversations yesterday as we were discussing, like, the challenges and the inspirations that are dear to our heart and to our practice on a day-to-day basis. I would also like to stress that Merete is also currently a member of Europeana Foundation's advisory board, and Merete has published substantial research in the area of digital museum practice. So please feel free to Google out and to benefit from the open access materials from Merete after the session and really get to know her better. We are really privileged to have you here, Merete, and I won't take any more of the time and let you talk instead. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction, and the pleasure is all mine. It's really, really inspiring to be part of this advisory board, and I'm really excited to get to know all of your projects down the line. Today, I'm just with you for 20 minutes, unfortunately, because I'm at a conference in Aarhus University, engaging citizen science. So this is also an important strand of my work. But let me just share my screen with you, and then I'll present some of the work that we're doing at Statens Museum. Can you all see my slides? Excellent. I also wanted to say it's really great to be here with Ross and Seb, great colleagues from many years, and you're in very, very good hands today, I just have to say. I wish I could stay for the whole session. I'm going to give you a little bit of input on how we think of relevance in digital open access at SMK. This is a big thing for us. So the National Gallery of Denmark, Statens Museum for Kunst, is a collection of Western art from 1300 to the present in central Copenhagen. We have the country's largest art collection of 250,000 artworks approximately. And the great news is that 2/3 of it is in the public domain, which gives us ample freedom to really hand over the control to our users. Importantly, less than 1% of the collection is on display at any given time in the physical galleries. And this, I believe, is quite normal for especially large museums, but also smaller institutions. It's often just a fraction that we are able to show, even if we have quite large galleries. And this is why digitalization is such an important aspect of our work today. As a very good colleague also from many years, Lizzie Jongma from the Rijksmuseum, once said, there's not a single physical space where all our heritage can be shown, but on the internet we can. When we talk about relevance of digital in our work strategically, I would say there are three aspects that are important. One is the ethos of opening up, which is, since we are public institutions, we are museums that were created to provide access for everyone to enjoy, learn, and engage in art. There's an obligation to actually share when we can and as much as we can. And the strategy of SMK is called SMK for All. Digitizing and opening up this collection has been key to achieve our strategy. And this is inspired by the whole Open GLAM movement that we're seeing with museums, galleries, libraries, and archives everywhere doing this work. Then there's also a strategic strand where we talk about the realities of the internet today. And here we were very inspired by the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam that did a survey of their collection when they considered taking this radical step towards openness 10 years ago. They did a search on an image search on the internet of this famous highlight from the collection, Vermeer's Milkmaid. And even though they had a restrictive image policy at the time, there were tens of thousands of copies of this artwork already on the internet. So in a digital era, our collections will find ways onto the internet, even if we try to restrict it. And I thought it was so inspiring what the Rijksmuseum then made as a decision from that conclusion, that instead of trying to control what you can't control, they regain control by actually sharing openly, because then they sent their great high quality images out on the internet, allowed people to use those, and that made their collection much more visible and used on the internet, sort of pushing down the bad copies that were all over down in search results. And finally, there's a strategic focus on the impact of opening up. And as I don't have much time today, I'd just like to focus all of your attention at the great community work that has been done in the Europeana network by colleagues all over Europe and all over the world to put together tools for our sector to evaluate and demonstrate the impact of digitizing and opening up our assets to the world. And I'll come back to how you can use this. So coming back to SMK's digital strategy, for many years we have said that we want to be a catalyst of users' creativity, and this is something that we can do on whole new levels because we have digitized and opened up our collection. It's kind of an addition to the physical museum that allows us to catalyze users' creativity. And the hub for this is our online collection called open.smk.dk. Even though our collection consists of 250,000 works, we're not final with digitizing it, but we have done some work. And out of the 100,000 plus artworks you'll find in open.smk.dk, there are over 37,000 artworks, 2D images, and a little over 300 3D scans, which are in the public domain, so completely free to use with no restrictions. When we look at how people then take this and use it, there's a good percentage of people using the 2D images, but a real explosion of usage of the 3D scans. So even if we only have a little more than 300 scans, they have been downloaded more than the 2D images. Now it's interesting to see this boost in interest in the public for 3D models and 3D heritage. Also, when we look at our sector and what we tend to offer. And I just wanted to focus a little bit on this today because there's a great political interest in it. So Europeana, this big database of European cultural heritage, has a lot of material, but a very tiny section of that is 3D. However, the European Commission is really calling for cultural heritage institutions to get their three-dimensional heritage digitized. And there's both, a strategic call for this in terms of many sectors in society that are demanding this, but also there's a real recognition that it is important to digitize our 3D heritage also for conservational purposes. And if you just quickly read this statement from my countryman, Margrethe Vestager, this was an awakening in the commission when the Notre Dame burnt down a couple of years ago, that it's actually important to save our heritage through digitization. And of course, we are all painfully aware of the heritage that is under threat now in Ukraine. So there's a real urgency actually for our sector to work on getting this digitization to save our heritage going. So back to how we're working with this at SMK. And I wanted to highlight this because it can feel daunting to get started with digitizing and scanning in 3D. How do you even get to do that when you have so many other things you have to do and you maybe don't know the technology, don't know, how do you do it? How much does it cost? But we work with a volunteer-based open access platform called Scan the World. It's a community of people all over the world who are interested in scanning cultural heritage everywhere. And they do this on a voluntary basis if institutions open their doors to them. And we have been doing this. We work with Jonathan Beck, who you see here in the picture, and he has done our 310 scans. We invite him, we pay for his trip and his stay, but then he does the work. And he hosts our scans on their platform. And that is how it reaches all these people. And here are just a couple of examples of how they're reused creatively by artists in many different ways, both in virtual and augmented reality and in film. Here's an award-winning short film by Lucia Reza, which I really invite you to go see. It's a beautiful piece of artwork based in these old collections. So we're both trying to be a catalyst of users' creativity, but also of their learning and knowledge sharing with each other. We work closely with our Danish Wikimedia chapter in a collaboration between cultural heritage institutions that have open collections to share and volunteers from Wikipedia who are interested in having access to these trustworthy images and data resources. So very much in line with what the Rijksmuseum experienced, that there's a real demand for high quality data out there from communities. We also work with young people, trying to make the museum relevant for them, inviting them to build on our collection in ways that make sense to them. And here's just one example of how they have facilitated reuse. A couple of years ago at a youth festival for political engagement in Denmark, they created a workshop around breaking taboos around mental illness between young people who suffer from different mental conditions like eating disorders or anxiety or depression, all share the same condition that is very tabooized to talk about. But expressing these difficult emotions through pictures, through images, really helped open up a conversation that was healing. And here we come back to the Impact Playbook, because we wrote a case study on this taboo workshop that I invite you to go check out. And this is an example of how you can use this tool to both understand the kind of impact your work with digital collections can have on specific target groups, but also to have a report that you can give to donors, funders, your executives, whoever you need to validate that it is important work you're doing with your digital collection. So just to wrap up, the next thing that we're going to do with our open collection is an educational bridge building project with schools all over the country to bring this open collection into classrooms everywhere, because we're based in the capital. So it's a lot of people don't have the benefit of being able to visit our museum. But having this open collection can benefit education all over the country. Because it's so playful, it really can support the creativity and learning of young people. So we're starting that project. And then a final note. I've been very inspired by these two books recently. They inspire me both because their titles are so striking. They are both about the digitalization of society and what it does to democracy. One is called The New Dark Age, the other The New Enlightenment. So two art historical terms that are really sort of on different ends of a spectrum. The very dark and the very bright potential. And they're both super interesting and supplement each other well, complement each other well. And what I take from these is that the consequences of our digitalized society is that a lot of people are confused about where you can find real facts, what is knowledge, who produces it, what are the good sources, what are the bad sources. And the point of the New Enlightenment book and the Fight to Free Knowledge by a very good colleague at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Peter Kaufman, is that cultural heritage and knowledge producing institutions today have a serious obligation to share this fact-checked, sound knowledge that we produce and hold. So we have to work with opening up through open licensing so that this material becomes part of the internet where everyone can find it, everyone at least who is on the internet, online. So there's a special obligation for GLAMS today to actually make this work. And because it's such a daunting task, we also really have to work together, share knowledge, share experiences, be in touch with each other, because that way we can go further together. So thank you very much. And there's a few minutes left for questions. If you have some comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts.